Hi, welcome to my training and awareness film video, Jodi Arias in Solitary Confinement, presented by Carl R. Torsbins, former Deputy Warden, New Mexico and Arizona Department of Corrections. Remember that this is for training purposes and awareness purposes only, so please share where you can. Remember that solitary confinement is not a custody level, it is a state of mind. It terrorizes the heart of those already on death row or serving life without parole and waiting for a custody change if ever. Solitary confinement is far more worse than anyone can ever imagine. Everything about this environment is abnormal, but after spending time there, you will become a byproduct of it, and what was once abnormal is now normal. The abnormalities of this environment are shocking and will offer you, after a short period of time, things to appear normal, even if they aren't. Somewhere along the line, your thinking changes and you adapt to cope and function in this bizarre and unreal world. Change how the mind works when it's put under these conditions. There's a frightful pattern of frequent deaths inside solitary confinement because most of the time you do not even realize that you are miserable, bitter, delusional, socially withdrawn, hypersensitive, and mentally and emotionally damaged. Someone usually has to point this out to you, as your sensory perceptors become numb and sometimes useless. The reality of this phenomenon that exists within the most restrictive environment is unlikely very clear to everyone else to see, but only those living there or correctional officers working in this man-made hellhole that are truly affected by it. This is part of the transparency that doesn't exist. They vary in size or configurations in different states, but in reality they all have the same effect and impact on the mindset and abilities to cope. The doors of steel and the windowless walls that surround you seem to close in at all times, especially after spending so much time out there. The sink, the toilet, and the mattress, as hard as the floor you walk on, consist to sell. The property is limited and TV available for those who can afford it. The reality is we eat, sleep, and spend 24 hours a day in a self-contained all-purpose room that is nothing more but concrete, steel, and bare bones amenities. There's a reality check for Jodi Arias when she hits the real max custody part. From the outside looking in, the cell offers the impression of a cage in the zoo used to confine wild animals. When out of the cell, you're moved to an outdoor cage used 3 times a week, 2-hour recreation outside, but given nothing to work out with in solitary conditions. Or solitary conditions. Most of the time you're out there by yourself. Long periods of time spent in this worst of the worst confinement may cause mental illness if not already there before. One can lose himself or herself and actually become as wild as human beings can be when driven to madness in the stir-crazy cell where nobody cares whether you live or whether you die. Another reality check for Jodi Arias. This is the reality of how cruel, brutal prison can be and how it changes your spirit and hopes of ever coming out alive. It's a very big part of this hidden prison environment, and many are a product of it after spending time inside the hole. Isolation is damaging. Arguments among solitary confinement prisoners and staff assigned are common in the daily routine as they banter back and forth. The usual results of frustration, misery, and bottled up rage lead to verbal aggression and degradation and physical altercations. Since there are rarely any physical contact, verbal confrontation carried out instead of constant basis, day and night. This adds to the madness and the occasional human touch that can lead to violence and often ends up with chemical agents deployed. Products conduct their own warfare on human beings that involve feces, urine, and saliva. In one of the worst forms of degradation in solitary confinement, but another form of expression and attempt to communicate under such conditions. It is common for an officer or prisoner to have things thrown or spit at them. The result is often physical altercation, cell extraction, and application of a spit mask strapped to a gurney and examined by medical, only to be put back into the cell. Another tactic in these confrontations are used with depriving you of sleep, by kicking and banging on the walls whenever you attempt to sleep, whether day or night. Sleep deprivation is common and adds to the madness. Soon you will witness forms of other human-created madness in the air occurring day and night. People will scream out loud and nobody will pay attention to the sounds made as an expression. adapt and be no longer disgusted because of the numbness created to this type of behavior. Sensing dangers and paranoia becomes the norm. Despite all the loud shouting, cursing, and banging that occurs on a daily basis, solitary confinement is a very lonely place, even with these noises. Strange how loneliness can be defined in different terms now. One's thoughts are constant psychological overdrive and create a make-believe world in one's mind to escape reality, and this is the most common symptom of solitary confinement. The mind will go mental, and there is no stopping the racing thoughts in your head, even with banging your head or fist against a hard concrete wall repeatedly to get attention or to rid yourself of the frustrations. Escaping reality for a while is necessary. It can be done by harming someone that comes close to you or desperate enough yourself. Many become so engulfed in hate, delusions, and confusion in these worlds that at times they find it difficult distinguishing reality from fantasy and deal with it in a most aggressive way or manner. Self-harm is common inside solitary confinement. Many sentenced to death will spend in this extreme isolation, experience bouts of severe depression, hopelessness, loneliness, anxiety, bottled up rage, and mental anguish. It's the nature of the beast to act that way once committed inside solitary confinement. Coping mechanisms have to really be strong in order to endure this. Living in this extreme isolation for long periods of time will take a toll on your psychological and emotional well-being. Whether you notice it or not, this kind of solitary confinement will take you apart. You are doomed, and it's inevitable. Living in needs strong will and perseverance. There is nothing beneficial or therapeutic about extreme isolation for punishment on top of punishment. It breeds despair, depression, rage, loss of impulse control, anxiety, misery, distorted thinking, hypersensitivity, and mental illness. The key word is mental illness. If they don't have it before, it can develop within those prisoners committed to the Arizona Department of Corrections as convicted murderers and sentenced to death will spend their days, weeks, and months and years isolated indefinitely, unless something changes in their status quo and releases them from the man-made hell. This is the eternity or eternity or infinity. Prisoners committed to Arizona Department of Corrections convicted murderers and sentenced to life with or without parole will serve a term of no less than 2 years before consideration to go lower, but likely spend up to 5 years before a reduction or lower custody level is considered by the administration. It's all based on risk assessment and institutional adjustment. Thank you for your time, and please share this video with those who need to be aware of the